Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for a webinar on teacher retention, a really hot topic right now because it's a real challenge for schools all across the country. So I especially salute you guys as administrators for signing up for it, because as much as we're worried about teacher retention, administrators are burnout too, but you're taking this time, carving out 30 minutes here to think about ideas to protect our teachers' morale and mental health. So thank you for doing that and for joining me. I will make sure we end on time, but I do have a ton to cover here. So hopefully you'll get some ideas, really practical stuff. Some maybe you've heard of and just are reminders, and maybe some new ideas as well to help, like I said, protect that teacher morale and mental health. A few housekeeping things. I want to introduce you to Robin. You want to say hi, Robin?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here today.
So Robin is here on the back end, making sure everything's running smoothly. So if you do have questions, some of you have it listed as chat or message. It's different on different platforms, but you can put a message in there and she will be able to help you, if you need a repeat of the hyperdoc link or anything like that, she can help with that. And also, speaking of that, there is a handout that goes with this. So all the resources and ideas that I talk about are listed in this handout. So there's a bit.ly right there, bit.ly/retain teachers. And I believe Robin will put that in the chat right now. So you can click on it there if you'd like, or you can access it later. But just good to know, you don't have to take a ton of notes. Everything is in there. And then the last question we usually get is this being recorded? And yes, it's being recorded. You will get a link to that recording within a couple of days, and feel free to share that out. We're happy for anyone who is interested in this content to be able to have it. All right, let's start with getting a sense of who is on this webinar. We'll do a quick poll here. Robin will pop that up. So let me know if you are a building administrator, let's say a principal at K5, 6, 8, 9, 12, or maybe you are a curriculum coordinator, K12, or district person, K12. So just what age group do you work with the most? I'm always a little bit curious to see who's here, and maybe can tailor some of that content appropriately. We'll give you just a minute or so. They still coming in, Robin?
Right. Yep, you know what? I'm going to close it out right now. They were coming in a little bit. All right. So middle school is the highest at 43%, followed by elementary K5 at 38%, followed by K12 at 33%, and then high school at 5%.
Okay, not very many high school today, but I get it, and I see you. Middle schools, most of them, I hear you. Those are my people. So welcome. Thanks for that. Thanks for sharing. I do want to quickly point out something that is sponsoring this webinar. So I really can't recommend enough Blue Apple projects. So if you are looking to implement project-based learning in your school as a way to help teachers teach the way they always dreamed they could, which is one way to help with morale, this can really be a help for that, to give them some sample projects with all the unit lessons given to them, all the real world connections, all of that. So if you're interested in that, you can use the code webinar to save 10%. And there's, again, a link to how to do that on that handout as well. All right, so we'll briefly talk about some of, why we're also interested in this topic right now, right? Struggle is real. We'll briefly kind of address some of the stats around that. And then I'm going to share with you 4 big ideas of how to help, and then specific ideas within each of those 4 ways. And then I'll talk specifically about ways that we can help you if you're interested in that. And one particular way, teachers always love free food. So I will also give you a chance to win a free lunch and learn for your teachers. That's something they always really like. So be sure and fill out the survey at the end, and you will have a chance to enter yourself for that. All right, so looking at the struggle is real, just wanted to share, in a little bit of a misery loves company kind of way, to share with you our survey for this year of the top administrator concerns for this particular school year. And it's interesting because this is different from last year, but the one thing that is consistent is the idea of teacher morale. That rose absolutely to the top. But what is different is improving teaching and learning and student engagement. We're up there as the second and third ones, whereas last year it was more even around the mental health for staff and students. So I do think it's slightly better than last year, but it's still really tough out there. It's still a top concern for administrators, as I said, all over the country. Looking a little bit closer at that, this is a survey out of EdWeek from 2021. And it looks at what is the likelihood that you will lead teaching in the next 2 years. Ask teachers that. And more than half said they were either somewhat likely or very likely to leave the profession, which is really sad because we know teachers enter this because they have a passion for it. So for them to be entertaining the idea of leaving, it means things are really tough. And I think even more interestingly is to say, when we asked them, if we had asked you in the fall of 2019, before the pandemic, how likely were you to leave teaching in the next 2 years? It was almost half of that, right? Almost more like a quarter than half, maybe about 30%, I'd say, that were somewhat likely or very likely. So the pandemic has really, exacerbated this, which is obvious by this question. Compared to teaching prior to the coronavirus closures, teaching now is, I don't think this will come as any surprise to any of you on this call, 84% say more stressful than it was prior to the coronavirus. So it's clearly, some of it's pandemic driven, but all the other stuff that goes with it too, right? All of the people who think they know what curriculum we should be teaching, who think they know what different protocols we should be putting in place. Across the board, it's really, really tough time for schools, for teachers and administrators. I did want to share this. For as much as we hear teachers are thinking about leaving, I thought this was, I don't know if this is actually encouraging or maybe it's actually even discouraging in a way, but it doesn't appear that they're actually leaving in droves. But that doesn't mean that there's not a problem. But I thought this was interesting, that the teacher turnover is similar to pre-pandemic levels. The reason why I said, I don't know if this is encouraging or discouraging, is obviously it's encouraging if they're not actually leaving, but if we know that they're feeling that way, they're feeling that stress that they want to leave, but don't even feel like they have an option and they're staying because it's they absolutely have to, but their heart's not in it anymore, that's actually even a bigger problem perhaps, right? So I just wanted to point that out to say, okay, maybe they're not actually leaving, maybe you haven't had a huge turnover in your school, but that feeling of overwhelm and burnout is real and is something we need to address anyway. And I want to put some numbers to that, like why bother? Because if a teacher does leave, I want you to bother with it because it'll save you money. Looking at Qualtrics, they put out this statistic that a cost for every US teacher who leaves can range from $9,000 to $21,000. So just think about what you could do with $9,000 or $21,000, right? And it increases engagement and achievement, because you can't realize those school improvement goals that you have worked so hard on if you have a continually changing staff. So I think the reason why this webinar is so popular today is, as an administrator, if you're thinking about teacher morale and why you should bother with it, saving money and increasing achievement are pretty much your number 1 and 2 goals. Maybe you could flip the order of those, but those are big priorities for administrators. So it is something that is worth paying a little attention to and spending some time together. So what we did is we went out and talked to a bunch of administrators, collected ideas, and talked to teachers. What would help you? What do you need? What supports do you need? Collected those ideas, and that's what we'd love to share with you here today. So as I mentioned, they mostly fell into 4 big categories. So these are a good just sort of, framework for you to keep in mind as you're looking for how to protect teacher morale and mental health. And look at these 4 categories: value their time, provide practical, real support, show them respect, and express gratitude. So those are the 4 categories. And as I said, I'll show you or give you a few of the ideas that rose to the top for each of these 4 categories. Now, don't worry, I'm not going to read all these to you, but I wanted to show that you have all these in your HyperDoc. So we listed a good probably 10 or 12 ideas for each category. I'll just talk to you about the top 5 that I thought were most interesting, and then you can peruse the rest of them on your own time if you'd like. So for valuing time, this is the number 1 thing that you can do to help teachers. And I know it's difficult because we're all short on time and there's so much to do and so little time. But one thing you can certainly do is prioritize and protect the planning time, both individual planning time and time for them to meet as grade level teams or as different groups, content area teams if you're in middle or high school. So protecting that time for them to plan. And this really does pay dividends because they can't create engaging, authentic learning experiences if they don't have time to plan. So if they know that you as an administrator are protecting that time, it's going to really make them appreciate their position there because they know that that doesn't happen everywhere. This kind of goes without saying, but I just want to put it as a reminder: take over a class for your teachers. If you see someone really stressed out and you can at all, carve out the time, if you offer to take over an hour of one class, an hour of a class or a class period for a teacher, it will mean the world to them. Give them a little extra planning time, a little extra breathing room. And being mindful, we want to do this always, but I think particularly now where teachers are so stressed for time, fewer, shorter meetings. And kind of along with that is the next one: make after school meetings virtual if at all possible, or asynchronous whenever possible. Really limit those school time meetings, or after school meetings rather, so that they have, when the bell rings, that they really can count on that time. So then the next one I'm going to share is hiring permanent subs. So if you have ESSER funding left, or EANS funding if you're a non-public school, then this is a great use of that money, to have a kind of group of people that are ready to be those subs. I know it can be difficult to find them, but I think using that money to really get that cadre of subs that are at the ready can help teachers feel like they feel so guilty if they are sick and they have to call in because they know how hard it is. So if they know that's a little bit of a burden that's lifted, that if they have to take time off, that you're going to have a sub there at the ready. I think those are awesome things that will help pay off. There's some other kind of creative ideas in there that you can look at your leisure, like I said, and see if they would work for you and your school. When it comes to providing support, here are a few ideas. This is kind of one you may not have thought of, but you really want to show that you support your teachers. So when they come in to talk to you, a simple move you can do is moving from behind the desk and have that discussion with them in front of the desk, or in a kind of at a common table. There's just something about that desk that can feel like a barrier and make it feel like you're not actually there to support them. So a little move that you can make to help that. Also, I think if you can show that you value their well-being, talk about the fact that that's important to you. I have a couple resources I'll show you on the next slide, a mental health tracker and an avoid burnout checklist that you could share. Also, show them that you value that by addressing it in your staff meetings. And again, I'll give you a couple examples of ways you can do that next. Providing the resources. So let's say, teachers are always saying, okay, I want to do this, but I don't have the resource for it. So give them the funding request form. I'll show you that. And you can use that so they can say, I would like this resource, and here's how much it costs, and here's how I'm going to use it. That will help you prioritize how you use your funding. So that's always a good use to show them that support by asking them what they actually need. And this is kind of this particular point in the year, I think especially, remind them to take it slow. There's a lot of school year left. I'll show you another resource for that. We call that our permission to card, and I'll show you that in a second. Again, you can look at the rest of them. But here's some of those resources these are all available in that handout document that I shared at the beginning, and Robin can probably throw that back in there if you joined us late. So you can always access these. There's a mental health tracker. This is something you could use to encourage staff and students as well to track their moods. They can share it with you if you want, or they can just use it, on their own. But it shows, if you, give them a resource like this, it shows them that you are actually caring about it and attending to it. And I think this visual format is just a quick way to sort of log these things and interpret, right? So by using the color coding about how you're feeling today, you can kind of see, am I going into a slump here? Is this something I need to, pay some attention to? There's also this resource we call our avoiding burnout checklist, which is just that. This is a way to just kind of check yourself, and you can encourage your staff to proactively look at this and look for those signs of burnout. Maybe you ask them to do it monthly, maybe you ask them to do it quarterly. But the best part about this is it helps them assess where they're at in terms of burnout, and then gives them some practical tips to prevent that or to recover from it if they're kind of already in a burnout stage. So definitely check that out if that's something your teachers could use. And as I mentioned, using your staff time. So here are a couple activities that you can do in your staff meetings that I think will help just elicit those mental health discussions, or show them that you value them as people and that you're there to provide that support. So the first one is to use art. So I personally like this one, but I kind of like artsy stuff. Not everybody likes it, but I did this with my own staff. You just kind of give them the prompt, draw a symbol that represents you and where you are on your journey. Something really broad like that. So here's some examples. One person on our staff drew a baby because they recently had a baby. Another one was working on some goals. So you see the mountain there. But just when they share their drawing and they share what it's about, it's just a way to kind of bring out some conversations about what's happening with them as people that you may not get in another way. So this is something that I think can be sort of fun. Keep it nice and open-ended. I give them like 2 minutes to draw. You don't want to make it feel like it's high pressure, that it needs to be super artistic. But it's a great way to reveal some of those mental health things that are happening. And you can do this with students as well, which is also kind of fun. Another activity I like to do in a staff meeting, this is a really affirming thing to do. So this is very simple. You just bring some paper and pens, and each staff member gets a piece of paper, writes their name. You can see I did this. Here's my piece of paper, and then you write your name, and you hang it up around the room in different places. So everyone goes and tapes it on the wall. And then you ask each staff member to go around and look at all the different pieces of paper and share what it is that you value about that person. So when I come to Robin's paper, I'll write there what I value about her, and the next person will come around and write something that they value. So the cool thing is, by the time you get back around, after doing this yourself, you get back to your paper and you can really see what it is that your colleagues value in you. And I use this as a leader as not just a feel-good moment, but also to say, when you're in your toughest times and as a group when we're struggling with something, these are the characteristics that your colleagues are depending on from you. And so these are the things you want to tap into in those particular times. So it's a good thing to know to be able to do that as well. As I mentioned, some of those other resources, there's that resource request form. Very simple, but something you can give them. I like that it's tied to a goal. So if you have a school improvement goal that the teachers know about, you can ask them to put that in here. What is the school improvement goal that this resource will be supporting? What is the resource and what's the cost? And that way you can, again, prioritize those. And just very simple, I give myself permission to encourage your teachers to cut themselves some slack sometime, right? I give myself permission to go home when the students go home, at least 3 days a week, whatever it might be. You don't have to dictate what it is, but just by offering these kinds of ideas, you're showing the teachers that you support them. So that's that second big category. The third category we talked about is to show respect, right? So we want the teachers to feel like, and this is something I think is broader than each of us as administrators, maybe it's more of a societal issue, but we want to bring back that respect for the profession because it deserves that. It's too important of a job not to. So here are a few ideas to make sure you're showing the teachers that respect that can really help keep their morale and mental health in check. First, don't lean on the same people all the time. And this is a really tough one. I know I'm guilty of this as much as anybody, but you have those certain people who are always happy to help. And so you always go to them, but deep inside they notice that, right? And there's some resentment that can build. So just check yourself on that. Even though they may sound like they will keep doing it and maybe they're your only option sometimes, but at least make sure you're attending to it as best you can. Ask for and act upon feedback. So oftentimes, we will kind of give this lip service. We'll ask teachers, what are you interested in, or what can I do to help you? But if you're going to ask for it, then also be ready to act upon it. And it doesn't mean you can actually do everything, but if you can't do it, explain why you couldn't do it or when you could do it. But I think most teachers are understanding that they can't, everybody can't get everything, but we need to communicate back to them. If they take the trouble to give the feedback, we got to be able to give them some feedback on, our response to it. The third one here I would mention is don't punish the group for the issues of a few. So if you have a few teachers who are, I don't know, not wanting to kind of implement a part of the curriculum, or who are not wanting to get on board with a certain part of school improvement plan, or just who are doing something that is not what you would like. Sometimes it can be, and again, this is what I'm guilty of, I want to just avoid confrontation, so I'll just say something to the whole group. But then the whole group feels like, I'm not doing that, I feel like I'm lumped into this group. So, take the brave approach there and address issues with the folks that are committing the issues and not the whole group. This is a very simple one, but it's really meaningful to teachers. It's just to notice and acknowledge student progress. I think especially now where students, I don't know, I hear this all the time, so I don't know if this is all of you, but I hear this from a lot of folks right now, that the students are they're just different. The behavior issues are different. I don't know if it's just being out of school for a couple years, they just seem, downright feral in some days. And so it can be difficult to really move students forward, and teachers can feel like they're not making the progress that they want to, and maybe they don't always see that. Or they feel like they could be doing more. So if you notice, like, I really noticed this particular student's reading has really improved, their fluency has improved, or I noticed this student was actually interested in checking out this book on a topic of something that you just were talking about. Those things mean a lot to teachers because they may not always see that student progress, and so it helps shine the light on, oh wait, I am doing a good job, but also to see that you see it is really, really powerful. And then the last one I'll share with you on the webinar before you can look at the rest of them yourself is show respect by being clear about priorities. We know there is way too much to be done in any given, school year, much less any given day, right? So I want to show you a resource we call the standard scoring sheet. Let's take my time. And this is a way to identify your power standards. This is honestly probably one of our most popular resources for administrators, because this is a tool you can go in, it's a spreadsheet and it's all editable, so you can change it to your liking. But what we did is went ahead and list all of the standards for reading, language arts, math, science, and social studies using Common Core. But if you're not using Common Core, it's probably something similar to it. And then we looked at what are some really key characteristics of a standard, because not all standards are created equal, that are important, and use those to rank each standard and then have the most powerful standards rise to the top. So for example, the criteria we used, and again, this is editable, so you can change it and use whatever criteria suits you. But we looked at a standard to say, is it a building block? How much future learning is built off of this particular standard? And we ranked them 0 or 1 to 5, right? 5 meaning it's a really strong building block, 1 meaning not so much. It's kind of a one and done standard. The second one was multidisciplinary. How applicable is this standard across different content areas? Again, a higher score if it's across multiple content areas. And then the last one was the level of thinking. So thinking about Bloom's taxonomy. If it was simple recall, maybe it's a 1 or 2. If it's application, maybe it's a 3. If it's actually creating something, maybe that's a 4 or a 5. So those were the criteria we used. You may have your school improvement goals or some other criteria, but you can go into this resource and plug in the criteria you want. You can change up the scores if you don't like how we scored them. But once you do that in these gray columns, it'll automatically, in the green column, total that for you, and it'll automatically on another tab show you, it'll rise to the top, these standards that are the highest scoring. So use this in your PLCs. Use this as a way to prioritize and keep grade level content focused, right? So your teachers don't feel like they have to do everything and don't have enough time for it. You can identify, you know what, yes, you have to get through all the standards, but these are the most important ones. So again, shows them some respect by helping them focus their time and energy. And the last category comes with a warning. It's express gratitude, but I can't emphasize this enough, that if you implement things in this category without doing the other 3 categories, it can very much backfire. So teachers don't want, another kitschy sort of like, I don't know, the extra gum saying you've gone the extra mile. They can love those things if the other things are in place. But if you aren't doing those other things, don't bother with this. But assuming you are doing those other 3 categories, there are some fun ways you can express gratitude. And I know this sounds silly, but I put it as the #1 thing, which is just say thank you and mean it. Taking the time to genuinely say thank you goes a long, long way. Smile knowingly. Again, this is one I feel silly actually writing, but there's a difference, and people can tell the difference when you catch, one of your teachers in the hall and you give that smile, like, I see you, I know how hard you're working, versus just your smile and walking through. Like, give them that knowing smile. Now, here's some of those kitschy things, but I don't know, I do love them. And again, if everything else is going in place and you're showing them that respect and you're providing those supports and you're saving them, valuing their time, then walk around and distribute popcorn. They will absolutely love it. There's something about the smell coming through the hallways. It's really, really great. Or bring in a coffee or dessert food truck. I think that's a really great idea. You can spend a little bit of money on it, but if they go outside and there is a nice dessert food truck, cupcake truck, or coffee truck, it can be a really great treat. And then the last one I'll share with you is to leverage community. So if you can, maybe if you have time to do it yourself, or maybe you can ask one of your admins who's like really good at cold calling, ask local businesses to see if they would offer teacher discounts. Would a restaurant near the area be willing to offer a buy one, get one free, coupon or something to your teachers? They have a hard time turning down an administrator who's trying to help their teachers. So why not give an ask? What can it hurt? And then I do want to show you there is this ultimate list of stores, so you don't have to do the asking. This one already does exist. So teachers love a deal. So one way to show them your gratitude is to share them this website. These are teacher discounts, a bunch of different, most of these are chains that are all across the nation. So you can see which places have teacher deals that you can share with your teachers. All right, so as I said, I mentioned the first 5 in each of these categories, but there are more ideas. So here is a look at that handout that you can take a look at and access the different resources that I mentioned. We're gonna take a very, very quick second. Actually, I'm not gonna do the poll. Just think about it so you have a chance to reflect. Which areas do you plan to focus more attention on? So just take a second to reflect for yourself. Do you wanna focus on valuing time, providing support, showing respect, or expressing gratitude? So I want to make sure I end on time. So I'll leave with just a couple other notes. First is to put your own mask on first. We all hear in the airplane, but it's so important. As I started this webinar, teachers are under a lot of stress, but administrators are too. So take some of these same ideas that you've seen there for your teachers and see if you can apply them for yourself. Make sure you have outlets to talk to. Administration can be a very lonely place. So make sure you're attending to yourself as well. And lastly, I just want to tell you that we are here to help. We really value teachers. We do all those things that we talked about. We practice what we preach. So if you think about it, we love to have this kind of three-tiered approach to supporting teachers with professional development that shows them the respect by giving them why this is important and giving them the actual capacity to do it. Then giving them the instructional resources that values their time. They don't have to create it themselves. And then obviously ongoing support provides support. And so we kind of look at this three-tier model to help students, help teachers rather. And if that's something that you're interested, we would love to talk with you more about it. I'll just share with you kind of some of the tools we have to make that happen. There's a needs analysis, totally free. It's about a 5 to 10 minute survey that you can take, and we'll give you a report that shows you where your PD needs might be, whether you use us for professional development or anybody else. It's just a great tool for you to have. So I would encourage you to check that out. And as we talked about giving your teachers voice, showing them some respect, you can survey them. So we can help you do that. We can help you get your teachers' input on this survey as well. And then we love to show them a good time and show them respect and value their time and show them the support when we give that professional development. So we like to pride ourselves on making sure it's more practical, more collaborative, more creative, more fun, more immersive than any PD that they've ever had. Honestly, that's our goal. And then when it comes to teacher resources, we have tons of free resources for teachers. And again, this provides them that support, takes and values their time so they don't have to create some of these things. So timely topics, for example, every month we give them some inquiry-based activities. So definitely encourage your teachers to sign up to receive these. Most of these things are free. Other things, we're nonprofit, so they're really affordable. It's a great way to help them create the classrooms that they want to create. And then lastly, one of my favorite things that we do and that teachers seem to really appreciate is the coaching piece of it. We really pride ourselves on making sure we can go in, whether it's lesson modeling or creating a resource for them. The last thing you want is to, have them go through a whole professional development. Now they got to go on pay teachers to, to find something that will help them implement that. We can help them create that and make it custom for them. So that's some of the things that we do. I wanted to mention those and that we love to help do that and our understanding of the times that we're in and the pressures that teachers are under. So with that, I wanted to share with you our next webinar. This is for teachers. So if you want to share this with them, that would be great. If you think that they would like it, it's on Keep Kids Weird, How to Use Student Strangeness for Good Instead of Evil. And we have one of our weirdest colleagues that will be delivering this. That's Ben. So I encourage you to have your teachers sign up for that. It'd be super fun. All right, last thing is our Lunch and Learn giveaway. So I wanted to offer this up. So if you think your teachers would like a free lunch and also a topic of their choice. So we've done everything from project-based learning to alternative assessments, classroom management, all kinds of topics that are usually pretty meaningful to the teachers. And we like to let them choose if that works for you. But we can do this for up to 20 teachers. We will bring in lunch to your school and do a virtual 45-minute learning session on a topic of your choice. So all you have to do is when we close this webinar, a survey will pop up. If you fill out that survey, one of the last questions will be, would you like to be entered to win the Lunch and Learn giveaway? I'm going to pick 3 winners for that, and I will draw those on Friday, November 11th. So we'll send you an email and let you know who won those and how to redeem those. So I hope this Lunch and Learn giveaway is a way to, if the other 3 categories were all about valuing time and showing respect and providing support, this could be a way to express gratitude as well. So we want to help on all those areas as well. So thank you very much. And if you have ideas for how you support your teachers in their mental health, by all means, please email me. I'd love to gather more and more of those ideas and continue to share them out. And thank you for all you are doing to help and support them, and as well as take care of yourself on such a difficult school year. So I wish you the best. Good luck as we approach the holidays, and hope to see you on the next webinar. Thanks so much.